Howdy, friends and neighbors. It's Brad, and I just came back from the Angel City Zen Center. While I was on the Angel City Zen Center's little TV show thing, YouTube show, whatever it's called, which I will link to below, watch it, it's good, my friend Noah Cicero brought up a book called The Zen Teachings of Bodhidharma, which I'd read a long time ago and I'd kind of forgotten about, but he brought up a bit that I really like in it. Now, Bodhidharma is a semi-legendary figure. He probably existed, there's probably a historical core to the Bodhidharma legend, but when you're faced with something like the Zen Teachings of Bodhidharma, you have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt, because we don't know exactly what Bodhidharma said and what Bodhidharma did. So, the Zen Teachings of Bodhidharma is sort of like the Gospel of John, perhaps, in the New Testament, which was composed between 70 and 150, or maybe even 200, depending on who you listen to, years after Jesus was dead, and represents more of what the early Jesus tradition believed than probably what Jesus himself as a person actually said. The same is true with this. It's translated by Red Pine, though, and Red Pine is a very reliable translator, and if you see something translated by Red Pine, you know it's going to be a good translation, and you can trust it. The bit that Noah brought up is in a section called Outline of Practice, and I'm just going to go through one bit of it so that we don't spend too much time here, but it's well worth reading. To enter by practice refers to 4 all-inclusive practices: suffering injustice, adapting to conditions, seeking nothing, and practicing Dharma. And I want to talk about suffering injustice. Here's what Bodhidharma, or the people in Bodhidharma's early tradition, had to say about that. When those who search for the path encounter adversity, they should think to themselves, in countless ages gone by, I've turned from the essential to the trivial, and wandered through all manner of existence, often angry without cause, and guilty of numberless transgressions. Now, though I do no wrong, I'm punished by my past. Neither gods nor men can foresee when an evil deed will bear its fruit. I accept it with an open heart and without complaint of injustice. The sutras say, when you meet with adversity, don't be upset, because it makes sense. With such understanding, you're in harmony with reason, and by suffering injustice, you enter the path. Now, somebody on Twitter saw a little quote that I put about this and thought that I had said tolerate injustice, but I'm not saying tolerate injustice, and Bodhidharma and his followers aren't saying tolerate injustice. It's not quite the same. Suffer injustice is a little different. Now, all of these teachings that involve karma and retribution for karmic activities that you've done in the past, they should all be pointed inwards towards this guy and never pointed outwards. You don't walk up to somebody and say, oh, you got cancer? Well, that's too bad. You must have done a shitty thing in a past life. You don't do that. Nobody likes that. It doesn't help anything. So you always use the teachings of karma to point inward. One of the sad facts about Buddhism as it exists today is that sometimes these teachings of karma are used pointing outwards. I met a guy in Benediktushof, this retreat center that I go to in Germany every year, and I'm going there in a few weeks, who told me a story, and I'm not remembering exactly, but I think I can get most of the details close enough. He said he had been somewhere in Southeast Asia, I can't remember where, maybe Thailand, I think it was Thailand, could be wrong. And he was doing legal work in which he was representing people who had no means to hire a lawyer, but who were having lawsuits against them. And he was doing this for free. And some Buddhist guy, some guy in a robes, who was a Buddhist dude, told him he shouldn't do that because those people are experiencing their karma, and if you help them out, you are not allowing their karma to ripen properly, and you're actually doing a bad thing to those people, so you should just let them suffer. I don't think that's a good attitude for a Buddhist to take. And the reason is, number one, the stuff about karma is slightly, I believe it, but I understand why people have doubts about it. So you don't want to kind of live your life by a philosophy that is a little dubious, that you can't really prove. So that's one thing. But the other thing, let's say it's true. Let's say the whole thing is true, that these people are suffering because they did crappy things in a past life and they deserve it and blah, blah, blah. Then it is not your duty to make sure that happens, to make sure they suffer properly. It's part of your karma to do whatever you can to help people who need your help. And if you have the inclination and the ability to help somebody who's in trouble, you do that. So I don't think it's a good idea to use these teachings of karma as like a bludgeon to say you deserve whatever shitty thing happened to you because you must have been a bad person in a past life or whatever. But at the same time, I've found it useful in my own life to take this view, to take the view that if something crappy happens to me, that I played a role in it, that I was not just a passive recipient of random injustice, that somehow, in some way, in some part of my past that I can't remember, don't know if it's a past life or whatever, I'm sort of agnostic about past lives, but in some way I played into that, and in some way it's coming to me because of something I did. Now, I don't know if that's true. I can't prove it's true, but ever since I adopted that as a way of looking at things, I felt more like I had, I don't want to say I'm empowered, because I hate the word empowered, but it does feel like I have more agency in it, and that there's more that I can do about it, and I don't feel like a helpless victim anymore. So I think it's good to say that if something comes to me, then maybe there's some sense in which I deserve it, but that there's also something I can do about it because it is part of my personal karma. There's my little sermon on karma I thought I'd give you folks. In case you're not too offended by that and still want to donate to my PayPal and Patreon, there below. Also, we're running a fundraiser for the Angel City Zen Center right now. None of that money goes to me, so don't send money to the Angel City Zen Center thinking it's going to me, because it doesn't. But it's good to support them, and I want to keep them going, and they're my friends, and I want to make it happen. So there's links below to that. Thanks for watching. Bye.